1 Kings chapter 22, verse 29. So King Ahab of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah led their armies against Ramoth-Gilead. Verse 30. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "As we go into battle, I will disguise myself so no one will recognize me, but you wear your royal robes." So the king of Israel disguised himself, and they went into battle. Verse 31. Meanwhile, the king of Aram had issued these orders to his 32 chariot commanders: "Attack only the king of Israel. Do not bother with anyone else." Verse 32. So when the Aramean chariot commanders saw Jehoshaphat in his royal robes, they went after him. "There is the king of Israel," they shouted. But when Jehoshaphat called out, verse 33, the chariot commanders realized that he was not the king of Israel, and they stopped chasing him. Verse 34, an Aramean soldier, however, randomly shot an arrow at the Israelite troops and hit the king of Israel between the joints of his armor. "Turn the horses and get me out of here," Ahab groaned to the driver of his chariot. "I'm badly wounded." Verse 35, the battle raged all that day, and the king remained propped up in his chariot facing the Arameans. The blood from his wound ran down to the floor of his chariot, and as evening arrived, he died. Verse 36, just as the sun was setting, the cry ran through his troops, "We are done for. Run for your lives." Verse 37, so the king died, and his body was taken to Samaria and buried there. Verse 38, then his chariot was washed beside the pool of Samaria, and dogs came and licked his blood at the place where the prostitute bathed, just as the Lord had promised. Verse 39, the rest of the events in Ahab's reign and everything he did, including the story of the Avoria palace and the towns he built, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. Verse 40, so Ahab died, and his son Ahaziah became the next king. Verse 41, Jehoshaphat son of Asa began to rule over Judah in the 4th year of King Ahab's reign in Israel. Verse 42, Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 25 years. His mother was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. Verse 43, Jehoshaphat was a good king, following the example of his father Asa. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight. During his reign, however, he failed to remove all the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burnt incense there. Verse 44, Jehoshaphat also made peace with the king of Israel. Verse 45, the rest of the events in Jehoshaphat's reign, the extent of his power, and the wars he waged are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. Verse 46, he banished from the land the rest of the male and female shrine prostitutes, who still continued their practices from the days of his father Asa. Verse 47, there was no king in Edom at that time, only a deputy. Verse 48, Jehoshaphat also built a fleet of trading ships to sail to Ophir for gold, but the ship never set sail, for they met with disaster in their home port at Ezion-Geber. Verse 49, at one time Ahaziah son of Ahab had proposed to Jehoshaphat, "Let my men sail with your men in the ship," but Jehoshaphat refused the request. Verse 50, when Jehoshaphat died, he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. Then his son Jehoram became the next king. Verse 51, Ahaziah son of Ahab, began to rule over Israel in the 17th year of King Jehoshaphat's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 2 years. Verse 52. But he did what was evil in the Lord's sight, following the example of his father and mother, and the example of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had led Israel to sin. Verse 53. He served Baal and worshipped him, provoking the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, just as his father had done. Amen.